Michael Jordan's Hall of Fame speech. I told all my friends I was just going to come up here and say thank you and walk off. I can't. There's no way. I got too many people I got to thank. In all the videos, you never just saw me. You saw Scottie Pippen, every championship I've won. I've had a lot of questions over the last couple of weeks, and everyone's been saying, well, why'd you pick David Thompson? I know why, and David knows why. Maybe you guys don't know why, but as I grew up in North Carolina, I was 11 years old in 1974 when they won the championship. And I was an anti-Carolina guy. I hated UNC, and here I ended up at UNC. But I was in love with David Thompson, not just for the game of basketball, but in terms of what he represented. You know, as we all, as Vivian said, we go through our trials and our tribulations, and he did, and I was inspired by him. And when I called him, when I called him out to stand up for me, I know that I shocked the crap out of him. I got two brothers, James and Larry. They're 5'4" and 5'5" in height. They gave me all I could ask for in brothers in terms of competition. You would think my brother Larry is an ideal situation where small things come in small packages. This dude fought me every single day, and to the extent that my mom used to come out here and make us come in because we were fighting way too much. And my older brother was always gone. He served in the army for 31 years. And the competition didn't stop there. My sister, who is 1 year younger than me, Ross, never wanted to be home by herself. She took classes, extra classes, to graduate from high school with me, go to the University of North Carolina with me, graduate prior than me. And you guys sit there asking, where's my competition? Or where did my competitive nature come from? It came from them. It came from my older sister who is not here today, and my father who is not here today. Obviously, it's within all of us. I mean, my competitive nature has gone a long way from the first time I picked up any sport. Baseball, football, track, basketball, anything in this class, I played it. So they started firing me, and that started fire with my parents. And as I moved on in my career, people added wood to that fire. Coach Smith, he's legendary in the game of coaching. And then there's Leroy Smith. Now, you guys think that's a myth. Leroy Smith was a guy who made the team when I got cut. He's here tonight. He's still the same 6'7" guy. He's not any bigger. His game is probably about the same. But he started the whole process with me. Because when he made the team and I didn't, I wanted to prove, not just to him, not just to myself, but to the coach that picked Leroy over me. I want to make sure you understood that you made a mistake. And it didn't stop there. My competitive nature went right into the pros. I get to the Bulls, which I was very proud of. At the time, Jerry Rice-Dorf was on the team. It was another organization, and Rob Thorne drafted me. Kevin Locke was my first coach. Kevin used to take practices and put me in the starting five. And he'd make a competitive thing where the losing team would have to run. So now I'm on the winning team, and halfway through the game, halfway in the situation, he would switch me teams. So I take that as a competitive thing if you're trying to test me. 9 times out of 10, the second team will come back and win no matter what he did. So I appreciate Kevin Locke for giving me that challenge, providing that type of fire within me. He threw another log on that fire for me. I know you guys got to go, and I know I've been up here for a lot longer than I told my friends I was going to be up here. I cried. I was supposed to go up here and say thank you and walk off, and I didn't even do that. So as I close the game of basketball, that has been everything to me, my refuge, my place I've always gone when I need to find comfort and peace. It's been a source of intense pain and a source of most intense feelings of joy and satisfaction, and one that no one can even imagine. It's been a relationship that has evolved over time and given me the greatest respect and the greatest love for the game. It has provided me with a platform to share my passion with millions in a way I neither expected nor could have imagined in my career. I hope that it's given the millions of people that I've touched the optimism and the desire to achieve their goals through hard work, perseverance, and positive attitude. Although I'm recognized with the tremendous honor of being in the Basketball Hall of Fame, I don't look at this moment as a defining end to my relationship with the game of basketball. It's simply a continuation of something that I started a long time ago. One day you might look up and see me playing the game at the age of 50. Don't laugh. Never say never, because limits like fears are often just an illusion. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm Jeff Bezos, and I'm giving a speech to the Princeton Institute graduates. How will you use these gifts? And will you take pride in your gifts or pride in your choices? I got the idea to start Amazon 16 years ago. I came across the fact that web usage is growing by 2,300% per year. I'd never seen or heard of anything that grew that fast. And the idea of building an online bookstore with millions of titles, something that simply couldn't exist in the physical world, excited me. I just turned 30 years old and I've been married for a year. I told my wife, Mackenzie, that I wanted to quit my job and do this crazy thing that probably wouldn't work, since most startups don't, and I wasn't sure what would happen after that. Mackenzie told me I should go for it. As a young boy, I had been a garage inventor. I invented an automatic gate closer out of cement-filled tires, a solar cooker that didn't work very well out of an umbrella and tinfoil, baking pan alarms to entrap my siblings. I'd always wanted to be an inventor, and she wanted me to follow my passion. I didn't think I'd regret trying and failing, and I suspected that I would always be haunted by the decision to not try at all. After much consideration, I took the less safe path to follow my passion, and I'm proud of that choice. What I want to talk to you about today is the difference between gifts and choices. Cleverness is a gift, kindness is a choice. Gifts are easy, they're given after all. Choices can be hard. You can seduce yourself with your gifts if you're not careful, and if you do, it'll be to the determinant of your choices. This is a group of many gifts. I'm sure one of your gifts is the gift of a smart and capable brain. I'm confident that's the case because admission is competitive, and if there weren't some sign that you're clever, the dean of admission wouldn't have let you in. Your smarts will come in handy because you will travel in a land of marvels. We humans, plodding as we are, will astonish ourselves. We'll invent ways to generate clean energy, and a lot of it. Atom by atom, we'll assemble tiny machines that will enter cell walls and make repairs. This month comes extraordinary but also inevitable news that we synthesize life. In the coming years, we'll not only synthesize it, we'll engineer it to our specifications. I believe we'll even learn to understand the human brain. Jules Verne, Mark Twain, Galileo Newton, all the curious from the ages would have wanted to be alive most of all right now. As a civilization, we will have so many gifts, just as you individuals have so many individual gifts as you sit before me. How will you use these gifts? And will you take pride in your gifts or pride in your choices? Tomorrow, in a very real sense, your life, the life you helped author from scratch on your own, begins. How will you use your gifts? What choices will you make? Will inertia be your guide, or will you follow your passions? Will you follow dogma, or will you be original? Will you choose a life of ease or a life of service and adventure? Will you wilt under criticism, or will you follow your convictions? Will you bluff it out when you're wrong, or will you apologize? Will you guard your heart against rejection, or will you act when you fall in love? Will you play it safe, or will you be a little bit swashbuckling? When it's tough, will you give up, or will you be relentless? Will you be a cynic, or will you be a builder? Will you be clever at the expense of others, or will you be kind? I hazard a prediction. When you're 80 years old, in a quiet moment of reflection, narrating for only yourself the most personal version of your life story, the telling that will be most compact and meaningful will be the series of choices you have made. In the end, we are all our choices. Build yourself a great story. Thank you and good luck.
This is Elizabeth Cady Sten's keynote speech at the Seneca Falls meeting. We have met here today to discuss our rights and wrongs, civil and political, and not, as some have assumed, to go into details of social life alone. We do not propose to petition the legislature to make our husbands just, generous, and courteous, to see every man at the head of the cradle, and to clothe every woman in male attire. None of these points, however important they may be considered by the leading men, will be touched in this convention. As for their costume, gentlemen need feel no fear for imitating that, for we think it in violation of every principle of taste, beauty, and dignity. Notwithstanding all the contempt cast upon our loose, flowing garments, we still admire their graceful folds, and consider our costume far more artistic than theirs. Many of the nobler sex seem to agree with us in this opinion. For the bishops, priests, judges, barristers, and lord mayors of the nation on the globe, and the Pope of Rome, with its cardinals too, all wear loose flowing robes. Thus tacitly acknowledging that the male attire is neither dignified nor opposing. But we are assembled to protest against a form of government existing without the consent of the governed, to declare our right to be free as a man is free, to be represented in the government which we affect to support, to have such as graceful laws as give a man the power to chastise and imprison his wife, to take the wages which she earns, the property which she inherits, and in the case of separation, the children of her love. The laws which make her mere dependent on his bounty, it is to protest against such unjust laws as these that we are assembled here today, and to have them, if possible, forever erased from the statute books, deeming them a shame and a disgrace to the Christian Republic in the 19th century. We have met to uplift woman's fallen divinity upon an even pedestal with man's. And strange as it may seem to many, we now demand our right to vote according to the Declaration of Government which under we live. This right no one pretends to deny. We need not prove ourselves equal to Daniel Webster to enjoy this privilege, for the ignorant Irishman in the ditch has all the civil rights he has. We did not prove our muscular power equal to this same Irishman to enjoy this privilege, for the most tiny, weak, ill-shaped stripling of 21 has all the civil rights of the Irishman. We have no objection to discuss the question of equality, for we feel that the weight of argument lies wholly with us. We wish the question of equality kept distinct from the question of rights, for the proof of one does not determine the truth of other. All white men in this country have the same rights, however they may differ in mind, body, or estate. The right is ours. The question now is, how shall we get possession of what rightfully belongs to us? We should not feel so sorely grieved when no man had not attained the full stature of Webster, Clay, Van Buren, or Gerrit Smith could claim the right of elective franchise. But to have drunkards, idiots, horse racing, rum-selling rowdies, ignorant foreigners, and silly boys fully recognize, while we ourselves are thrust from all the rights that belong to the citizens, it is too grossly insulting to the dignity of woman to be longer quietly submitted to. The right is ours. We have it. We must. Use it. We will. The pens, the tongues, the fortunes, the indomitable wills of many women are already pledged to secure this right. The great truth that no government can be formed without the consent of the governed shall echo and re-echo in the ears of the unjust judge until continual coming we shall weary him. There seems to be a kind of moral stagnation in our midst. Philanthropists have done their utmost to rouse the nation of its sins. War, slavery, drunkenness, gluttony have been dragged naked before the people, in all their abominations and deformities fully brought to light. Yet with idiotic laugh, we hug those monsters to our breasts and rush onto its destruction. Our churches are multiplying on all sides. Our missionary societies, Sunday schools, and prayer meetings are innumerable charitable and reform organizations are all in operation. But the tide of vice is swelling and threatens the destruction of everything, and the battlements of righteousness are weak against the raging elements of sin and death. The world has never yet truly seen a virtuous nation, because in degradation of woman, the very fountains of life are poisoned at their source. It is vain to look for silver and gold from mines of copper and lead. It is the wise mother that has the white sun. So as long as your women are slaves, you may throw your colleges and churches to the winds. You can't have scholars and saints, so as long as your mothers are ground to powder between the upper and nether millstone of tyranny and lust. How seldom now is a father's pride gratified, his fond hopes realized, and the budding genius of his genius son. The wife is degraded, made mere creature of caprice, and the foolish son is heaviness to his heart. Truly are the sins of fathers visited upon children to the third and fourth generation. God, in his wisdom, has so linked the whole human family together that any violence done on one of the chain is felt through its length. Here, too, is a law of restoration. As in all women have fallen, so her elevation shall be the race to be created. Voices were the visitors and advisors of Joan of Arc. Do not voices come to us daily from the haunts of poverty, sorrow, degradation, and despair, already too long unheeded? Now is the time for women of this country, if they were saved for institutions, to defend the right, to buckle on the armor that can best resist the keenest weapons of the enemy, contempt and ridicule. The same religious enthusiasm that nerved Joan of Arc to her work nerves us to ours, and every generation God calls men and some women for the utterance of truth, a heroic action, and our work today is fulfilling of what long has been foretold by the prophet Joel 2:28. It shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and daughters shall prophesy. We do not expect our pathways will be strewn with flowers popular applause, but over the thorns and bigotry of prejudice will be our way, and our banners will beat the dark storm clouds of opposition from those who have entrenched themselves in the stormy bulwark custom of authority. and who have fortified their position by every means, holy and unholy. But we will steadfastly abide the result. Unmoved, we will bear it aloft. Undauntedly, we will unfurl it to the gale, for we know that the storm cannot rend it from a shred. The electric flash will more clearly show to us the glorious words inscribed upon it, equality of rights. This is General Douglas MacArthur's Duty, Honor, Country speech. Duty, honor, country. Those three hallowed words reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, what you will be. They are your rallying point to build courage when courage seems to fail, to regain faith when there seems to be little cause for faith, to create hope when hope becomes forlorn. They make you strong enough to know when you are weak, and brave enough to face yourself when you are afraid. They teach you to be proud and unbending in honest failure, but humble and gentle in success, not to substitute words for action, not to seek the path of comfort, but to face the stress and spur of difficulty and challenge, to learn to stand up in the storm, but to have compassion to those who fall, to master yourself before you seek to master others, to have a heart that is clean, a goal that is high, to learn to laugh yet never forget how to weep, to reach into the future but never neglect the past, to be serious yet never take yourself too seriously, to be modest so that you will remember the simplicity of true greatness, the open mind of true wisdom, the meekness of true strength. The story is known to all of you. It is the story of the American man-at-arms. My estimate of him was formed on the battlefield many, many years ago and has never changed. In his youth and strength, his love and loyalty, he gave all that mortality can give. He has written his own history and written it in red on his enemy's breast. But when I think of his patience under adversity, of his courage under fire, and his modesty in victory, I am filled with an emotion that I cannot put into words. He belongs in history as furnishing one of the greatest examples of successful patriotism. He belongs to posterity as the instructor of future generations in the principles of liberty and freedom. In 20 campaigns, on 100 battlefields, around 1,000 campfires, I witnessed that enduring fortitude, that patriotic self-abnegation, and that invincible determination which have carved his statutes in the hearts of his people. From one end of the world to the other, he has drained deep the chalice of courage. Always for them, duty, honor, country. The code which these words perpetuate embrace the highest moral law and will stand the test of any ethics or philosophies ever promoted for the uplift of mankind. The soldier above all other men is required to practice the greatest act of religious training, sacrifice. In battle and in the face of danger and death, he disposes those divine attributes which his Maker gave him when he created man in his own image. No physical courage and no brute instinct can take place of the divine help which alone can sustain him. However hard the incidents of war may be, the soldier who is called upon to offer and give his life for his country is the noblest development of mankind. You are the leaven which binds together the entire fabric of our national system of defense. The long gray line has never failed us. Were you to do so, a million ghosts in olive drab, in brown khaki, and blue and gray would rise from the white crosses, thundering those magic words, duty, honor, country. This does not mean that you are warmongers. On the contrary, the soldier above all other people prays for peace, for he must suffer and bear the deepest wounds and scars of war. But always in our ears ring the ominous words of Plato, the wisest of all philosophers, only the dead have seen the end of war. Today marks my final roll call with you, but I want you to know that when I cross the river, my last conscious thoughts will be of the Corps, and of the Corps, and the Corps. I bid you farewell.
Okay, this is J.K. Rowling's commencement address to the Harvard class of 2008. The first thing I would like to say is thank you. Not only has Harvard given me an extraordinary honor, but the weeks of fear and nausea that I have endured at the thought of giving this commencement address have made me lose weight. A win-win situation. Now all I have to do is take deep breaths, squint at the red banners, and convince myself that I'm at the world's largest Gryffindor reunion. On this day when we have gathered here together to celebrate your academic success, I have decided to talk about the benefits of failure. And as you stand on the threshold of what is sometimes called real life, I want to extol the crucial importance of imagination. Ultimately, we all have to decide for ourselves what constitutes failure, but the world is quite eager to give us a set of criteria if we let it. So, I think it's fair to say that by any usual standard, a mere 7 years after my graduation day, I had failed on an epic scale. An exceptionally short-lived marriage had imploded, and I was a lone parent, jobless, and as poor as it is possible to be in modern Britain without being homeless. The fears that I had had for myself and that my parents had for me had come to pass, and by any usual standard, I was the biggest failure I knew. You might never fail on the scale that I did, but some failure in life is inevitable. It is impossible to live life without failing at something unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not have lived at all, in which case you fail by default. Failure gave me an inner security that I had never attained by passing examinations. Failure taught me things about myself that I could have learned no other way. I discovered that I had a strong will and more discipline than I had suspected. I also found out that I had friends whose value was truly above the price of rubies. The knowledge that you have emerged wiser and stronger from setbacks means that you are, ever after, secure in your ability to survive. You will never truly know yourself or the strength of your relationships until both have been tested by adversity. Such knowledge is a true gift for all that it is painfully won, and it has been worth more than any qualification I've ever earned. Now, you might think that I chose my second theme of imagination because of the part it played in rebuilding my life, but that is not wholly so. Though I personally will defend the value of bedtime stories to my last gasp, I have learned to value imagination in a much broader sense. Imagination is not only the uniquely human capacity to envision that which is not, and therefore the fount of all invention and innovation. In its arguably most transformative and revelatory capacity, it is the power that enables us to empathize with humans whose experiences we've never shared. Unlike any other creature on this planet, human beings can learn without having experience. They can understand without having experienced. They can think themselves into other people's places. Of course, this is a power like my brand of fictional magic, which is morally neutral. One might use such an ability to manipulate or control just as much to understand or sympathize. And many people prefer not to use their imaginations at all. They choose to remain comfortably within the bounds of their own experience, never troubling to wonder how it would feel to have been born other than they are. They can refuse to hear screams or peer inside cages. They can close their minds and hearts to any suffering that does not touch them personally. They can refuse to know. I might be tempted to envy the people who live that way, except that I do not think they have fewer nightmares than I do. Choosing to live in narrow spaces leads to a form of mental agoraphobia, and that brings its own terrors. I think the willfully unimaginative see more monsters. They are often more afraid. What is more, those who choose not to empathize enable real monsters. For, without ever committing an act of outright evil ourselves, we collude with it through our own apathy. If you choose to use your status and influence to raise your voice on behalf of those who have none, if you choose to identify not only with the powerful, but with the powerless, if you retain the ability to imagine yourself into the life of those who do not have your advantages, then it will not only be your proud families who celebrate your existence, but thousands of millions of others whose reality you helped change. We do not need magic to transform our world. We carry all the power we need inside ourselves already. We have the power to imagine better.
I'm doing the speech "We Shall Fight on the Beaches" by Winston Churchill. We have found it necessary to take measures of increasing stringency, not only against enemy aliens and suspicious characters of other nationalities, but also against British subjects who may become a danger or a nuisance should the war be transported to the United Kingdom. I know there are a great many people affected by the orders that we have made who are passionate enemies of Nazi Germany. I'm sorry for them, but we cannot, at the present time and under the present stress, draw all the distinctions which we should like to do. If parachute landings were attempted and fierce fighting attended upon them followed, these unfortunate people would be far better out of the way, for their own sakes as well as for ours. There is, however, another class for which I feel not the slightest sympathy. Parliament has given us powers to put down fifth column activities with a strong hand, and we shall use those powers subject to the supervision and correction of the House, and without the slightest hesitation until we are satisfied, and more than satisfied, that this malignancy in our midst has been effectively stamped out. Turning once again, and this time more generally to the question of invasion, I would observe that there has never been a period in all these long centuries at which we boast when an absolute guarantee of against invasion, still less against serious raids could have been given to our people. In the days of Napoleon, the same wind which would have carried his transports across the Channel might have driven away the blockading fleet. There was always the chance, and it is that chance which has excited and befooled the imaginations of many continental tyrants. Many are the tales that are told. We are assured that novel methods will be adopted, and when we see the originality of malice and the ingenuity of aggression which our enemy displays, we might certainly prepare ourselves for every kind of novel stratagem and every kind of brutal and treacherous maneuver. I think that no idea is so outlandish that it should not be considered and viewed with a searching, but at the same time, I hope, with a steady eye. We must never forget the solid assurances of sea power and those which belong to air power if it can be locally exercised. I have myself full confidence that if all do their duty, if nothing is neglected, and if the best arrangements are made, as they are being made, we will prove ourselves able once again to defend our island home, to ride out the storm of war, if necessary for years, if necessary alone. At any rate, that is what we are going to try to do. That is the result of His Majesty's government, every man of them. That is the will of the Parliament and the nation. The British Empire and the French Republic, linked together in their cause and their need, will defend to the death their native soil, aiding each other like good comrades to the utmost of their strength. Even though large tracts of Europe and many old and famous states have fallen or may fall to the grip of Gestapo and all the odious apparatus of Nazi rule, we shall not flag or fail. We shall go to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and streets. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. And even if, which I do not for a moment believe, this island or a large part of it were subjugated and starving, then our empire beyond the seas, armed and guarded by the British fleet, would carry on the struggle until, in God's good time, the new world, with all its power and might, steps forth to the rescue and the liberation of the old.